Okay, in this lab class, we'll see what are the data types in the task one, like whatever the experiment listed um, in SML lab. We'll see the what is the first lab we have. The first lab program. We'll see. So before that, we'll see what type of data types and how we'll take the data types and how we use to give inputs from user end. Like we always like in the last lab, whatever what we did, like we are fixing the variables like a equals to 15, a equals to 20, like that. We are fixing and we are running the program. But in this lab, what we'll do means it will ask user like what are the please enter your input like it command prompt will show. So there we have to enter the input. Based on that input, the program will execute. Okay. So here in this session we'll cover what are the data types. Like we have the data types like vectors, lists, matrices, arrays, factors, and data frames. Then we'll see how to take input from the user. Then we'll see what is the first experiment we have in the SML lab. Okay. Basically, integer, float, and a character, char, and a boolean. All these things are variable variable types. Okay, how many types we can initialize the variables? Like we can take the variable as integer or float or character or boolean expression or something like. Those are the variable expressions. When it is come to the data types or data how we can represent the data. Okay, so we can represent the data in terms of vectors, in terms of list, and in terms of matrices, in terms of arrays, factors, and data frames. Okay, so vector we know already. Okay, for example, if we are writing a vector, suppose a is a vector and we are giving the inputs like 1 2 3. So here 1 2 3 are the elements under the vector a. So this is one kind of vector. We generally whatever we are seeing in mathematics, that the same vector we are calling here is we are representing that set of elements we are representing as a vector. List is also looks like same. Uh, so every data type has its own characteristics. So vector is a numerical combination, and you can take anything like mostly for vector operations like addition of vectors, subtraction of vectors, multiplication of vectors. All those things we deal with vectors. Where if you take the list we can take any kind of inputs. Like if I say a is our list, so here I can initialize like multiple variables. A is the character, and 1.2 is a float value, and 13 134 is a integer value. Like that I can store list of elements like any character, any type of data. I can take it as a list. So so we can do uh, list operations. Like here we take operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division between the vectors. But when it is come to the list, we take different type of characters like integers, float, character, boolean expressions into the form of list. The expression will looks like same. Matrices we know, if the data is represented in terms of rows and columns, so that we call it as the matrices. Where arrays and matrices again same. So arrays we can write the dimensions also, like it is 2 by 3, and we can write how many layers were there. Like there are two layers like that. So on front side we have 1 2 3 3. Suppose if I take this one 2 by 2 by 2. So so this last two means we have two frames. Like behind this also we have one frame. Outer frame we have 1 2 3 4 elements, and behind this row we have 3 4 5 6 like that. Okay, so this is one kind of arrays we can represent. And factors is nothing but the repeated data whatever we have. For example, if you say suppose in this list A, B, B, C, D, D, E. If I have these elements, if I take the factors, what will it will do means whatever the unique values are there, that layers it will inform us. Like, so how many unique values were there here? A, B, C, D, four values are there. So it will represent like A, B, C, D. So these are the unique values, and the layers is four. So four variables we have, and that four variables itself is duplicated in that list or in that vector. So that is how we represent the factors. Data frame basically, it is a stored data. We represent basically whatever we are seeing in the Excel form or MySQL or other table forms. All those things we call it as a data frames. So basically everyone do operations under the data frame itself. Like it is a serial number, employee ID, then name, then department. Like these are the four columns we have, and under that we have serial number 1, 2, 3, and with the respect to employee ID 01, 02, 03, 04, and the names XYZ, some W, and their professions like A, B, C, D. So this is a type of representation. We call it as a data frame. Okay. So how we take these data types, we'll see now. So here first thing, we are creating a vector. Okay. So here my vector name is apple. My vector name is apple. So how many type of apples we have, that I'm taking as vector. So apple is my vector name, and in this one here we are taking C. Why we are taking means it is a collection of elements. If we want to write in terms of vector, we write C as a function. So you can see here, as it was mentioned, C colon, which is nothing but function, which means combine the elements into a vector. So we are writing in front of colon. C means it is combining the elements into a vector. That is why we are writing the C. So this is a syntax of creating vector. Think like that. So here my vector name is apple. So here C is nothing but combine the elements. What are the type of colors we have in the apples? Like we have red apples, green apples, and yellow apples. So these are the three elements we are inserting into the vector. So here my vector name is apple, and vector is taking the elements, the three elements here. So that's it. This is how we create the vector list of elements. Okay. So if you want to see the type of variable, we simply use class function, class of apple. So that will say it is a character, because we have all the characters, right? So we call it as character vector, characters vector. That's it. If you write all the numbers, it will say integer vector or numerical vector, like that. This is how we create the vector. Next, we are creating the list. So here, as I told you, creating list is a combination of data types. In the previous way, previously vector means it is the same character. If you take the character, that entire vector is carrying characters only. If you are taking float values or numerical values, it takes all numerical values only. If you take Boolean expressions like true, false, it takes all Boolean expressions as a vector. When it is come to the list, we intermix all the variable types. Like we can insert float, we can insert um, character, we can insert Boolean expressions and everything. Okay, so if you see here, I'm creating list. So that is what here we are mentioning it as list. If you are not mentioned this list, that comes as a vector. Okay, and you will get an error also. So here my list name is list one. So this is my list name. So I am storing data in this variable, which is called list one. So what I am doing here, I am creating list. So I am writing it as list of C. C means we have the elements inside the colon, combine all those elements and make it as a list and store that list into list one variable. What it will do means whatever the characters we create in this brackets, like C of 1 comma 2 comma 3. Why I wrote this this means combine this 1 comma 2 comma 3 as one element, and another element is 21.3, and another variable element is sign. So combine all these elements. Here 1 2 3 is combined as one element, and 21.3 is one element, sign is one element. Again, these three elements you combined as one element, and that element you make it as a list and store that list into the list one. Okay, that is what we are doing here. So if we print, if we ask program to print that list whatever we prepared, you will get like this. Okay, so list first one we have see, yeah. So in the first element, what is the first element? We have combined like 1 2 3 is treated as one element, right? So that it is 1 2 3 or 2 5 3. What we wrote there. 253 I was taken here 253. So if I take in that way, you get 253. Let me write once again. So my list name is list one. In this list one, I am storing elements in terms of list, and I'm combining the elements like 2 5 3. These three elements, C of 2 5 3 is treated as one element of the list, and the 21.3 is another element, and sign is another element. Okay, so once we done this, if we ask us list to print, it takes first element, like first element we have C of 253, so it takes 253 in the first line, and the second line it is taken as 21.3, and the third line it will take sign. So it is how, this is how it is printed. But when it is a vector, it is represented in terms of rows. Here where list is represented in terms of columns. So the data whatever we are giving as input in the list, that is stored like a column, whereas in vector it is stored like a vector. So you can see here in the previous example, we are storing the data here like red, green, yellow, and when it asks us to print apple, so because this is apple is a vector, when we ask to print apple, this is what we are going to get. This is our output. So red, green, yellow. So whatever the input we are giving in terms of row, that's the same row it is represented as the output. But when it is a list, it will represent, like if I say the same thing, so apple, if I create the apple as a list, so list of, combine the elements, we have red, green, and yellow as my list. Then if I ask print apple, then it will start like first element is red, second element is green, third element is yellow. Like that it will get printed. So list output stored in terms of column, vector output stored in terms of rows. So this is about the list. As of now, any doubts? Any doubts? Yes, any doubts? Next one is matrix. So we are creating the matrix. So here we are going to mention how many rows and how many columns and what is the dimension of the matrix. Dimension means how many layers first. Like here I was taking matrix, we take input as, I mean, whatever the elements we have. Before that we'll mention it as a matrix. Before the elements, if you mention it as list, it will store it as a list. If you not mentioned anything, you store it as a vector. Okay, if you mention it as array, then it will store as array. So everything in every format, suppose we'll declare like this is a variable name. In this one, what type of data you want to store, that you have to mention, and these are the elements. So here we have the elements and data type. Okay, so you want to make it as list, then you mention like list of elements. If you want to create array, you just mention array and that respect to element. If you want to create matrix, then you mention it as matrix and the elements. Okay, this is the standard form. If you not mention these elements, then that you will store it as a vector. So this list is prepared and it is stored that respect to variable, whatever we are mentioning. So here this is the format of creating vector, sorry, creating matrix. So in the matrix, I want elements like A, B, C, B, A. So these are the elements I want to take as the elements of the matrix, and how I want to represent these elements. Two rows should be there. In my matrix size is two rows and three columns. So 2 by 3. So two rows and three columns. So that these elements will be arranged in 2 by 3 form with the serial order. So it will start with first element, and we have the first element is A. So this is the element A. Then second element is A. It feels like left to right from top to bottom. So A, then again we have B, then we have up to three columns, right? So first row, first element, first row, first column element, first row, second column element, first row, third column element, and it comes to the second row, first element. Second row, first element is C. Second row, second element will be B. Second row, third element will be A. So this is positions like 1 1, 1 2, 1 3. So this order, whatever they mentioned here, A, B, C, B, A. So the positions is 1 1, that is first row and first column, first row, second column, first row, third column, second row, first column, second row, second column, second row, third column. This is how it got stored as a matrix. Okay, here by row means true, means it is filling in terms of rows. If you say here it is false, if you mention it is false, capital false, then what will mean, so it will store the data in terms of columns. So if the same command, if I said 2 by 3 rows, and if I ask you to take by row, I said it is true. By row 2 means it fills the matrix positions in row form. If you say it is false, then it goes in column wise. So we have the elements, right? So these elements will convert into the columns first. So this is first row and first column. So A will be here, and uh, second row. So it goes with columns. Like before it was row, right? Now the like you will get a transpose of this matrix like A, B. So first it will fills with the first column. So first row, first column, second row, first column, third row, first column. Then it goes to the second row. Sorry, first row, second column, then second row, second column, then third row, second column. It fills the data in terms of column wise. So we have CBA is here. So this is how it get printed, or it gets stored if you say it is false. So this is how we create the matrix. So here if you not mentioned this one by row, if you not mentioned, you just entered value up to here. Okay, you just entered your syntax here. You are ignoring this. If you are forgot, you just forgot about this, and you entered the matrix form up to here, number of rows and number of columns. It defaultly it goes with the row. If you mention, it goes with column. Okay, so this is how we create the matrix. Like we represent the dimensions like number of rows, number of columns, and how many layers you want to take as an input. That is what we are calling as arrays. So this is same like C language arrays, like two-dimensional array, three-dimensional array, whatever we did there. To the same way here also we are doing. So here my array elements were green and yellow. So here in this one, first the format of creating array is my array name is A, and in this A I am storing an array with elements C. C is combined elements like green. When you are writing characters, you have to mention either single colon or double colon. That is colon green and colon yellow. So these are my elements of array. And what are the dimensions? Here I was mentioning the dimensions. Dimensions of C, combine the dimensions like 3 rows, 3 columns, and 2 layers. So this first 3 represents number of rows, and second 3 represents number of columns, and this now represents number of layers or number of parts. Okay, so this is number of rows m, n, and you can take dimensions as d. So n and d. See where d is nothing but how many dimensions? 2 dimensions or 3 dimensions, like that. So this is how we create a vector. So you can see here my green and yellow. My array element should be green and yellow. So first I mentioned like 3 by 3 by 2. So 3 by 3 by 2 means 3 by 3 matrices, like that. I want two arrays, sorry, 3 by 3 with size 3 by 3. I need 2 layers. So first one is 3 by 3. Okay, like that. I want two arrays. So this is another 3 by 3. It starts filling from the left and it starts with green. Okay, so it is like how we did in the previous case by row, that the same way it started filling in the array. So first element is green, then yellow, then again greens, then again yellow, order wise. Okay, then green, then yellow, then green, then yellow, then green. Again, when it is we ended first part by green, then second will start from the yellow, green, yellow, green, yellow, green, yellow, green, yellow. This is how it stores the data. If you write by 3, again it takes another layer. So that is also 3 by 3, and I want 3 layers like a 3-dimensional vector, 3-dimensional array. So again here the second dimension ended with yellow. So third dimension will start with green, yellow, green, yellow, green, yellow, green, yellow, green. If you write 4 means it goes another layer and started with yellow because it is ended with green. So like that. If you take 3 elements, if I have the elements like A, B, C, D, I have the 4 elements. Assume that, and I am creating an array. So here my array is A, and I'm creating array and combine the elements like 1, 2, 3, 4. I am taking 4 elements 1, 2, 3, 4, and this 1, 2, 3, 4 I want to arrange in terms of dimensions C of 2, 3, 4. So that means here 2 is number of rows, 3 is number of columns, and 4 is number of layers or number of parts. Okay, so I want 2 by 3 matrices for 4 times. So I'll take 2 by 3 one time, second time 2 by 3, third time 2 by 3, and fourth time is also 2 by 3. Okay, so this is count. I just wrote in terms of count. It started filling from the beginning element, like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So number of first it takes from the row, in terms of rows it get filled. So 1, 2. So my size is 2 rows and 3 columns, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So this is how we created. It ended with 2. So again it starts with 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Again 1, 2, 3, 4 1 2, then 3 4 1 2 3 4. So this is how we are going to get the output. So it started with a 1 and started from 1 and keep on going like serially in serial order. So this is how we create the arrays by mentioning the dimensions. Okay, any doubts? Yes, any doubts? Then we have the factors. So after arrays we have the factors. So here I'm just creating one vector. So here I was not mentioned anything, so it treated like a vector. So my vector name is apple colors. So apple underscore colors is my vector name. Okay. So in this vector, I am combining the elements like green, green again, then yellow, then red, then red. So you can see this one. So that is what I am creating as a vector. Now this apple colors I am making as a factor. So to make any list or any vector, if you want to make it as a factor, you just mention it as a factors. That respect to variable name. Before that, you just write a function factor of variable name. So here my variable name is apple colors, and apple colors class means data type is it is a vector. So I am converting this vector into a factor. So factor of apple. So factor, just for understanding, our variable name is factor apple. So in this one, I'm storing factor of apple colors. So here apple colors is your vector. So this is your vector, and this vector we are making as a factor, and this entire factor we are storing in the factor vector factor of apple, and we are printing that factors now. So you can see here simply print factor apple means whatever the elements we have in the factor apple, it's got printed. Like we have the green, so here it is green, green again, green. Then we have yellow, yellow, red, red, red again, red again, red again, red, green, green. So it got printed. Then it print it next. If I ask you to create, how many levels were there? How many different or how many unique values were there in that vector? So how many were there? Like we have green, yellow, red. So three different keys were there, different values were there. So it's going to print that three values. So n levels means n levels of factor apples. So factor apples, no, how many levels were there? So there are three levels. So that one is levels is green, red, and yellow. And this count of this one, how many levels is printed as three. So this is how factors will help. So to do the statistical analysis, we use this type of things. Like we can use count function. I just want to know, suppose your student records were there, there is 60 students. You think that your results, like you got scores like 0, which is fail, and minimum, let us assume that 4 is pass, then B plus, then B, then uh, A plus, just A plus, then O, O means outstanding, and 10 is excellent. So these are the grades. Okay, so assume that for every student from 1 to 60, they got some grades. Suppose first person got some 10, second person got 8, third person got 7, and some next person got 0, some last person got some 6. And out of the 60 students is repeated, I mean, will get one grade from this range only, either that is 0 or 4 to 10, between that any value. Okay. Now, if I want to know what is the count of how many students got 0, how many students got 10, how many students got 6. If I want to calculate those things, I can use this factor function and I can get results within a, like I just got it very easily. Okay? So that their type of situations, we can use the factor. Then we have another called data frame. So basically, in real time, in industries, they deal problems, or they do programming with respect of the data frames only, because data frame is like a database. Okay, so here we are creating a frame, like it's a number of rows and number of columns with column titles, and you are storing the data. Like you take the student database itself, we store the data in terms of rows and columns, like serial number, what is the student ID number, then student name, then department, and which year, age, how many backlogs were there, what is his CGPA, what is his attendance percentage, like that. We have the database, like we have the database. So the same way we creating the data frame here. So here my data frame name is BMI. My data frame is BMI. As I told you earlier, if you want to create an array, you just mention array parenthesis. If you want to create a list, you just mention list name. So you mention what is list name, and in this list what you want to insert, so that you make it as list and write the elements. Okay, combine the elements and store it, make it as a list and store that list into the list name. So the same way here we are creating data frame. So this is the format, data dot frame. So this dot is must, otherwise you'll get error. So BMI is my data frame name, and I want to create a data frame. So this is data frame. In this data frame, what I need a column name as gender. So this is columns names, titles, column titles. Gender is one title, height is one title, weight and age is, these are the titles. Okay. Out of under the titles, what are the elements we need? So these are the elements like male, male, female. So I'll just write. So these are the titles, right? So we have 4 titles. What are the gender, height, weight, and age? Okay. And now storing the data under this. So under gender, we have the elements, like combine the elements male, male, female. So we have elements male, male, female. Heights respectively is 152. So 152. Second one is 171.5, and third one is 165. Okay. Third one is weight. Weights are like 81, 93, and 78. And age is 42, 38, 26. So this is a database or data frame. So this is how we create the data frame. So here, this is the syntax. You just clearly observe. First, we have to write the column title and equals to whatever the inputs you want under the title. You write that elements in terms of bracket. Within the parentheses, you mention that elements under this title, whatever you are declaring. So this is how we create the data frame. Okay, so these are all about the data types in R programming. If you take the Python, so in the Python we have list, then we have tuples, then we have dictionaries. So there are the data types. We don't see tuples dictionaries in the R programming. These are something different from the uh, R programming. This tuples and dictionaries we see in Python only. Okay, as of now, any doubts? So these are all about the data types we have in R programming. I think everyone has this material. Just take the reference and do the programming. Any doubts as of now?
So will you share the material and Google Classroom?
Okay, I'll share this material. I'll send that lab manual.
Alright, sir. Thank you.
Okay. How we are taking inputs from the user. Okay. So while we execute the program, it will ask us and enter your value like that. So how it will uh, how it will take the values and all that syntax we are seeing now. Suppose here it is very simple. Just if you want to write a prompt like read the line. Suppose if I want to store the variable as var is nothing but my variable name, and I want to whatever I will give as an input that should store in this var variable. Okay. So for that we use command read line. So it says means you take our input from the user. So for that we have one command which is a read line. Under that what we have to read. So it says like prompt means like what should be the user seeing question from the system, like enter any number. So this is how it will ask. So prompt it will store as a will show as a pop-up like enter any value. So if I say like 255 here, it was entered as 255. Then this 255 stored in variable var. Okay, we can use that for further case. And here most important thing, whatever the input you are giving, that is treated. I mean, initially it was a character only. It always stores the input. It takes as input as a character. You need to convert because here 255 also it treated like a character only. If you want to do some numerical operations, you have to convert this value. So for that purpose again we write var is equals to as means as you convert that 255 character into integer. So as integer I want to see this var character. In variable whatever we are storing, that is in terms of char, I just want to convert that as integer. So that is how we write. That's it. So this var is in now character. Now this character I'm giving as input and converting that as integer, and that integer again I'm storing in the variable. If you get confused, you can see this. My variable name is var underscore. Initially it was a character. So whatever I am giving as input, that is read line and prompt enter value is the pop-up will get, and will enter the value. That enter value will store in var character. Now whatever the suppose if I give input as 255, now class of 255 means class of var underscore char, because this 255 stored in this variable name var underscore char. So if I take var underscore char type, what type of data we stored in this var char, that shows is like character. Okay. Now I want, because it is a numerical value, I want to do some numerical operations. For that I need to convert this character to in numerical value. So for that purpose what we do means, again I am taking var as numerical. I am just converting var char into the numerical. So my variable name is var underscore num. I want to convert as integer. So as dot integer, and which one you want to convert? Varchar, because varchar storing numerical expression, but it data type is actually data type is character. So this character is converted to integer and that will store in var num. So if you see what is the data type again, class of var num, then it will show it is numerical data type. Okay. So this is how we take input from the user and we can convert that into the. So if you want to convert into the character, you just mention as dot character. Okay. This is how we take inputs from the user in R programming. Okay. So I'll share this link and keep these things as reference. Somewhere you copy here whatever the links I'm providing, and there are many types we can read the data. So you can use these links and find out how many ways we can read the data and how we can store the data directly as integer or directly as a character, and all those things you will find in this link. Just go through this link and check out. Then in the R lab, we have the first task, first program out of 10 programs. So this is first program, write an R programming to create an array passing in a vector of values and vector of dimensions, and also provide names for each dimensions. Okay, so we have to pass vectors, vector values and vector column names and vector dimensions. All these things we have to create an array. So this is how this is what they are asking us to write in a program. So initially they ask us to create an array. They ask us to create an array. So here my array name is A. So A equals to array. So I am storing data. I'm taking information in terms of array. And in this array, what I want 6 is 30. That means you take any values, but that must be between 6 and 30. So this means the starting value to the range of values I'm mentioning here. This is starting value. This is your starting value, and this is your ending value. So within these values, I am going to print values randomly. Even I don't know how it takes randomly. It's every time when you execute the program, the values will get changed because it goes random order. But the range is with 6 to 30. So I want values from 6 to 30, comma. And what are the dimensions? How I want to represent this data? That means dimensions. And I'm taking C, combine the dimensions 4 comma 3 comma 2. That means 4 rows, 3 columns, and 2 layers. Okay, or 2 parts. So this is how I want to print this 6 to 30 values. So my range is 6 to 30, and take any random values and print in terms of 4 rows, 3 columns, and 2 layers or 2 parts. And I want to take this data in terms of, like, I have to mention what is the row name and what is the column name. So here it was taken in wrong way. Basically, first we have to write the rows. So 4 rows were there, right? So you can write it like, and here also 1 comma means I mentioned what is the range and what is the dimensions of this range, and then I'm creating the names. So dimension names. Okay, so in this dimensions names, I'm taking as a list. So storing list of number of rows, number of columns, and number of parts or number of layers. So in this list, how many rows were there? 4 rows. So you write like row 1, comma, row 2, comma, row 3, comma, row 4. These are the first row. Then say comma. These are the first elements of the list. Then the second elements of the list is column 1, comma, column 2, comma, column 3. This is the second element of the list, and third element of the list is part. How many parts were there, or how many layers? So layer 1, comma, layer 2. Okay, so here I am taking inputs 6 to 30 is my a range of values. So starting value is 6 and ending value is 30. Then what? How I want to print those values? How I want to take this range means 4 is 3 is to 2. That means 4 rows, 3 columns. Like that, I want 2 parts or 2 layers. And what are the titles for this number of rows and number of columns and number of layers? So my titles for number of rows is row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. Number of columns titles were column 1, column 2, column 3, and number of parts is layer 1, layer 2. Then if you write the program and if you ask the program to print this one, then you will get an output like this. It was mentioned wrongly because this should be in the second row. There is an error. So this is number of rows. Instead of column, we have to write rows, and because this first four represents number of rows. So this is not columns. This is the rows. Row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. Okay, so here we have to get, instead of column, we have to get row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. And instead of rows, we have to mention it as columns. So that is what, that's why we are getting here this column 1, column 2, column 3. Part 1, part 2, it's fine. So part 1, this entire part 1. Similarly, that the same dimensions 4, 3, 4 rows and 3 columns. I want another part also. That is part. Okay, we'll see now. Okay, so here my array elements were this one. In this array elements, they ask us to take elements, means vectors, and vector names, and list of vectors, dimension of a vector. So our program aim is to take the values as input and dimensions and dimension names. Okay, so values range is 6 to 30 we taken. So here 6 to 30 is our range. Then dimensions is like 4 rows, 3 columns, and 2 parts. So that is 4, 3, 2 is our dimensions, and dimensions names is row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. I'll change this. This is should be my row 1. Row 3, row 4. This is number of rows is 4 rows. That's why I mentioned row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. The number of columns is column 1, column 2, column 3. And you can write it like part 1, part 2, or layer 1, layer 2. That's your wish. So if I run this, you can see now. It took random values and it got printed. 6, 10, 14, 7, 11, 15, like that. So how many parts were there? 2 parts. If I mention it as like dimensions, I'm just changing the same code with different dimensions. should be row 1, row 2, row 3. So I want only 3 rows. So 3 rows. I don't want this. So I can remove it. Remove this one. And I want 4 columns. 3 by 4 I want. So 3, 4 columns. So I can mention it like column 1, column 2, column 3. Then I want some 3 parts, 3 layers. I can write it like comma part 3 also. Okay, my range is also, I'll change the range also. I take range from 1 to 100. So my range is between 1 to 100. I want 3 rows, 4 columns. Like that I want 3 matrices. Okay, so this is what I want to. So it's very clear, right? So my range of values is, this is range of values. Starting value is 1 is 100. That means this is starting value and this is your ending value. And what are the dimensions? 3, 4, 3. That means this 3 represents number of rows, 4 represents number of columns, and 3 represents number of parts or number of layers. Okay. And what is titles? I have to give dimensional titles name, guys. So first one is range of values, second one is dimensions, third one is dimensions title. So 3 rows means row titles are row 1, row 2, row 3. Column titles was column 1, column 2, column 3, and we have 4 columns, right? So we have to write one more column here. So comma, column 4. So I want 4 columns here. 4 columns, comma, part 1, part 2, part 3. So how many layers? 3 layers. So part 1, part 2, part 3. See here. I got part 1, part 2, part 3. The number of rows is 3 rows. So 3 rows. Now input. You can see here. So 3 rows, 3, 1, row 1, row 2, row 3. Row 1, row 2, row 3. The number of columns is 4, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 columns like that. How many matrices I want? 3 matrices or 3 parts. So part 1, part 2, part 3. These are the titles. Okay. If I say this is something like matrix 1, mat 2, mat 3. If I change the names, it that the same names got printed, mat 3. And instead of my row names are A, B, and C. These are my row names. And column names is C1, C2, C3, and C4. Okay. If I execute that, then it will get changed. Error unexpected and equal in my rows, my columns, dimension names was list 1, list 2, list 3. Okay, it's missing its indentation. Let me take from the original code itself, because the indentation is missing here. So row, once if I enter this, it start from this line. Okay, just because of order. So here you can see in this one, you get a dotted line. The program I did not do anything. I just changed the positions of the like format of the program, like just where it is starting, where it is ending. That is what we here we call it as indentation. So when I took this program, you see here it should be in proper order. Like here I'm taking the variable declaration and the bracket it is starting here, so that the same way it should be ended. Okay, and each row main column names is like my range and my dimension, and dimension names are in the same page. When it is come to the dimension names, there are multiple rows which starts from the next line, next side of the next some tab disturbance tab space after it starting. Okay, to get that one you just place your cursor and make shift enter, which will give you the proper order. Okay, which will be give you the proper order. So like that, indentation is very important in the program. If I change the order, I won't get replay. Suppose if you see, I just copy the same program. I just take the same program, edit, clear console. Here I was taken the same program, and you can see here now this is in the proper order. See here, you can see the data line. So it is in the proper way, like the variable where I started, print also I'm. So this is like inside of this only we have all this code under array itself. We have all this code, so that is in the properly order. So you can see here this dotted line. So this is one tab, this is two tabs, this is three tabs. Like that indentation it was mentioned layer wise. My first layer is this one, second layer it starts from here to here, then third layer is like this, fourth layer is like this, fifth layer. And again when it is started ending, like when we write the code of this first layer ending will be here, second row ending will be, so this is the first row indentation, second respect to row indentation will be ended here, third row ended will be, we have to write here, fourth row here, and the last row here. So this spaces we call it as an indentation. Even if you miss this indentation, you will get an error. Okay, so that is very important in either R programming or Python. Python also we have indentation issues, and you people are habituated to write program a very neat manner, right? In C programming or all, instead of starting at every code and starting at single line, like at same position. Like in C we have all this facility, like we can write and we can end the program from every line, starting line we can fix at one position. Those who are good programmers, they do indentation and they represent that program like this, so which we can understand very easily. You guys do one thing, take this first program from the task one and take different combinations, take different ranges, and take different dimensions, and take different dimension names and all. Try the program and try to get it. Okay. Here our program is, we have to create an array, and that array stores an vector of values, and that vector of values, and we have to mention that values dimensions and dimension names also. So that is the first program we have under this one. And in this one we have an error, as I told you. This row should come first, then this column should. So yeah, this is in this itself where we have the error. So this should come first, then this should be second. Or you write instead of column, so this you replace column instead of with row, and this row replace with columns, then you will get the proper output. As per this inputs, this output is correct, but as per our convenience, here we have 4 rows, so in that 4 rows we are representing as columns, so that is an error here. You correct it and try different combinations and do the programming. Any doubts from the first experiment from our lab? Any doubts? Okay, thank you all. See you in the next class.